Hi everyone, I'm Law of the West, and welcome to another video in my ongoing series of buyer's guides. This time I'm going to be taking a look at the SRV. I've been playing around with it for a while now, and I have to admit that at first I was almost dispassionately unimpressed with what I thought was basically a spacefaring tow truck. And to be honest, that's exactly what it is. But over time I started to see its potential more clearly, and I began concocting all kinds of plans that would otherwise be impossible to do without it. Thought of the various ways that it could be used to set up scenarios for org events and videos that would normally take literally forever to accomplish using other means. I also thought that this ship would be pivotal in creating jobs for non-combat orientated players that could be done from within the safety of an armistice zone. And to be fair, you can kind of do that right now, but only to a certain degree. And it wouldn't take much for them to make a mission that uses an SRV to tow ships that were left floating near a station or one of the exterior landing pads. And after a suitable amount of time had passed, it would automatically be tagged as being salvageable. And once again, it seems like they're taking steps towards making this happen, but the gameplay is just not quite there yet. But what I'd like to see is stations offering an open mission that's a lot like how Call to Arms is presented. But once accepted, this mission would let you legally tow any abandoned vehicle away from the station so that a salvage ship could dismantle them. And it would even go as far as to label these ships as being points of interest on your radar to make them more noticeable. And then it would pay you once you finish moving the derelict out of the armistice zone. It would be like these stations were hiring you for cleanup duty. That way not only would SRV owners, but any other ship with a large enough tractor beam could go from station to station and earn credits for doing this kind of work. I also don't see why this kind of mission couldn't be offered for outposts, distribution centers, and bunkers as well. This would have created a whole new gameplay loop for non-combatants, and it would have been a creative solution for how they could get rid of the abandoned ships that do nothing other than bog the servers down. And it seems like they are taking steps in this direction towards making this a reality, because the game does let you tow certain vehicles, but at least at the time this video was made, there still wasn't any missions associated with doing this, and they don't offer you any money for your services. As for the ship itself, I really do like what they did with the SRV. The artist did an amazing job building it, and it not only lived up to my expectations, but went way beyond it in a lot of ways. And the first of those things that I noticed is a centralized airlock that connects the interior ramp to the flight deck and the habitation section of the ship. This is a very intelligent design when you start taking into account things like decompression and environmental systems, because this layout lets people enter and exit the ship from either the flight deck or the hab without affecting the other rooms. And they can all be independently sealed off from one another, which is going to come in handy when security starts to become an issue. You could lock the doors to the flight deck so that random people can't just barge in and take control of the ship. And a lot of the SRV owners are going to be making a living answering beacons, which can often end up being used as a trap by some low-end pirates that'd be all too happy to have a free SRV delivered right to them. The shipbuilders also added an additional cargo bay that's accessible from the outside of the ship. It's rather small, but just the fact that they put this in at all is a nice feature to have. And being externally accessible is going to work out a lot better than internal storage would be when it comes to having to deal with a constant stream of random individuals. But I had to come to terms with the reality that I'll never be able to grab an asteroid and use the SRV's tractor beam to throw it like a trebuchet at an Idris at the next Zenith Threat event. And I would never be able to use the beam to grab a fighter and hold it in place while the other ships turned it into vulture food. But those are just examples of my overly ambitious expectations for what I could do with this ship. So what do I really think about the SRV? Overall, I actually really like it. But because of the lack of gameplay that's associated with it, I can't recommend getting an SRV, not yet at least. There's very little use for it in the game right now, so if you don't already own one, then there's no reason for you to feel like you should have to run out and get it. And if you want to make money using it, then you're going to have to get very creative and do something like team up with someone who owns a vulture and then hope that they cut you in on some of the profit. Eventually, the SRV is going to be a great ship for doing some play-at-your-own-pace, non-combat casual gaming, but I feel that holding off and getting this ship later than sooner is only going to benefit you. Especially after they've streamlined how the tractor beam works, tuned the gameplay that's associated with the towing mechanic, and have added some missions and more relevance to it within the gaming world. Well, that's going to be it for this buyer's guide for the SRV. I've been your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.